You go ahead.
All right, we are recording, we are live. So welcome everybody to this Key Ministry webinar today. We're super excited about it. And so whether you're joining us on the webinar, if you're out in Facebook land and joining us from the Not Alone Facebook page, or maybe even watching the recording of this later, welcome. So my name is Beth Golick with Key Ministry, and my colleague Catherine Boyle, who's the Director of Mental Health Ministry for Key Ministry, is here today. And we are so excited to have Selena Miller as our guest today. So the title of this webinar is A Mother's Perspective on the Police Concerning Her Child on the Autism Spectrum. So Selena and I are both kind of in the Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio, and she's a force out here. I can just tell you that. So she has a very cool ministry that she'll tell us about, and she's a fantastic mom. So, and I am just like, I'm very happy to have made her acquaintance through Facebook, and you know, hopefully we were supposed to be able to see each other at Inclusion Fusion Live, but
right.
Yes. Thank you, COVID. But anyway, just so excited to finally have a larger discussion. She and I have talked, but to have a larger discussion with all of you. So we invite you to, if you're participating live on the webinar, utilize the chat function, and you can ask questions for Selena there, and we'll make sure that she sees those. Or if you're on Facebook, go ahead and comment. Let us know where you're watching this from, and let us know what questions you have. So Selena, before we get started with our topic, can you tell us a little bit more about you and about your family?
Yes. So first off, I just want everybody to know you will hear my son Elijah. He is in CVEC right now on the computer in the next room. I kind of have to give him cues. So if you hear something, that's him. Okay. But as Beth said, my name is Selena Miller. I have a 20-year-old son named Eric, and I have a 16-year-old son named Elijah. And Elijah has autism, epilepsy, congenital glaucoma, and other health diagnoses. I started Mother to Mother at the Word Church, and it started off with this great idea of a support group, and to let our church members know that there is a place for them. And so that's where we started. We started having meetings every 2 weeks, and then it went to every week. And from there, it just grew. I also work for Milestones Autism Resources as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator. I'm married of 5 years to my husband, Robert, who's amazing. And I inherited 7 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so my life is extremely busy. Mother to Mother is the organization that I currently am the founder of, and we do a lot of ministry and work in the community with families. Mm-hmm.
So Mother to Mother is a local organization, meaning a Cleveland-based organization. Although I know with the pandemic and more things are online, I think you probably have been able to reach people outside of Cleveland these days. And Milestone is also an organization that is Northeast Ohio, serves Northeast Ohio. However, our listeners may be familiar with them because of the conference. Can you tell us just a little tiny bit about the conference that happened?
Yes, so Milestones has an annual conference. We just had it this past June, which of course, due to COVID, we had virtually. It was amazing. For those of you who know, Pastor Lamar Hardwick was our keynote speaker. We had many sessions offered on from transitioning to healthcare to teachers. Like there's something for everyone, including parent tracks. I did a panel discussion for African American parents and Hispanic parents, where I asked them questions just about their journey with getting a diagnosis, school, and just their culture and how autism is perceived in their culture and amongst their families. So the conference is every year. We actually had it on demand up until the 31st was the last day, but we're actually planning for our next conference.
Okay.
So please visit milestones.org for more information about the organization as well as the conference.
Great, thank you. And even before it went online, the conference has always been a national conference.
Yes, always been a
located
national conference.
Right.
Yes.
So,
we have people from all over that would come to, that would actually come to Ohio for the physical conference. So yes, it's a national conference.
right, great, thank you. And Catherine, for those of you who don't have access to the chat, Catherine added the website for Milestones, and it's milestones.org. So, all right, so let's dive into our topic.
Okay.
So Selena, can you share with us, as a parent, the anxiety that you have or a parent might have over just potential interactions of your child with autism and law enforcement? I mean, let's just get right into it.
How can I even, the anxiety is, so let's just start here. If we just talk about my 20-year-old son interacting with police as an African-American male, the anxiety is extremely high. It's double or triple that for Elijah. On top of being African-American, him having autism, he's very impacted. So my fears of any type of a situation, whether it's him being out in the community, or if, let's say, officers had to be called to our home, which unfortunately we've heard horrible stories about them entering the home and a young man with autism was killed in that instance. I have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, and it started probably 6 or 7 years ago because of my constant fear about Elijah's life and what the future holds. And with police officers, you know, we're now, which I'll talk about, we're starting to train officers. But before that, them not having the training and not understanding that Elijah may look at their badge and it's shiny and he's going to want to touch it, and he's going to want to, if you have a dog, walk up to your dog. And, you know, officers not knowing, thinking that he could be just someone that's on drugs or under the influence of alcohol, or just being, the word I want to use is just not complying, not being compliant to what they're asking him to do can cause him to be hurt. I've talked to many, many parents, whether African-American or other backgrounds, who are terrified about our children's interaction with law enforcement. There's been, and we all want to know the same thing. What can we do to kind of alleviate some of these anxieties that we have? What I try to teach is we can teach our young ones or our children on the spectrum to the best of our ability, giving them tools on how they should act with law enforcement, because it's going to go on both the coins. You want to train the officer, but you also want to train, as much as you can, your loved one. Mm-hmm. We want to provide police officers with as much information as we can. So one thing that we're working on at Milestones, and it'll be aired soon, is we're going to do a safety training. And we're going to do Facebook Live so everybody can tune in. And we're going to give you tips such as going to your local police department and talking to them about whether they have a database that they keep people with mental health and disabilities in the database. So let's say if you have a child that wanders, or if you have a situation where they have to come to the home, they're already made aware that there's someone that lives there with a special need. There are a lot of different cities who do have this database. But however, if they don't, you can work with your local police department and help them to create this database. And I just want to empower parents to know that if they don't have it there, we can help them to create these things. You can also go through the county board. The county board has an MUI liaison who will bridge the gap between families and police officers. So there's a lot of things that we can do, but the anxiety is definitely real. Like, I have a sign in my yard that shows that someone with disability lives here.
Mm-hmm.
Stop signs, anything that you can put in the window to inform officers that someone lives here with a disability. Working
You just got
together.
a shout out in the chat. You said the magic word, empower parents. Love that. That's from
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to work together. We have to work together. And I know it may be easier said than done, but there's things that we can do as parents. For instance, you can teach our children about, let's say, talk about wandering.
Mm-hmm.
In the Big Red Safety Box through the NAA, which you can get for free. And I'll try to get these links together best so that we can give them to the families.
Sure.
And they have alarms that you could put on your windows if you have a child that wanders. So if they lift up the window, the alarm goes off. We can teach them about stop signs and the importance of when you go to a door, before you leave out of it, the red sign says stop. And so there's so many different ways that we can try to empower our young ones and teach our loved ones how to be safe. Part of the Milestones training for police officers is we trained Warrensville Heights High School students on an IEP. My son Elijah attends that school, so his class. And we taught them who are police officers. We taught them the importance of not touching the dog or the importance of standing still. But on the other note, we taught officers that if the child is stimming and it's not hurting anyone, to let them stim, because it calms them down. So like I said, it has to go on both ends, where we teach the officers as well as our loved ones.
So thank you. So I'm hearing three things. I'm hearing that the anxiety that parents feel is very real.
Yes.
So that is for sure. And then I'm hearing there are some things that as parents, we can equip our kids and kind of create situations that might alleviate some of the, circumstances that could cause these situations that could be potentially dangerous and certainly anxiety producing. And then I'm also hearing there are ways that law enforcement officers can be equipped to better serve and better understand kids with autism, kids with special needs, well, and adults too. So, and I love what you've done through the school. I mean, that's like an incredible partnership there, and being able to, help equip those students. And then also the fact that you're working with local police departments and putting together training for that. So if a parent is listening now, can you give us a few examples? And you gave a few, but can you provide examples of like maybe your top 5 tools that you would equip parents with to help educate, train their kids, prepare their kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few right here in front of me. So one, if you have a loved one that has a special need and they drive, you can go on the ood.ohio.gov website, and they have what's called LEADS, LEADS. And it is a form that you fill out. It's a communication law that was passed a couple of years ago. And so you fill out the form through the OOD, and it goes to the driver DMV, and the information is loaded up into the system, in the lead system for law enforcement officers. So let's say your loved one is driving and they get pulled over by the police. If you have this form filled out through OOD, then there should be a flag that comes up to the officer based on the license plate that says that there's someone in the vehicle that has a communication impairment. Now, even if your loved one doesn't drive, but you're the parent or the caregiver and you drive, you can register your vehicle. So if the law enforcement officer pulls you over, it'll show that there's someone in the vehicle that has a communication impairment.
Okay.
So that's through OOD.
Now, is that an Ohio thing? Like, is one of those O's for Ohio?
Well, yes, one is for Ohio. I'm
Okay.
not sure how other
Okay.
states, if they do have it. I just know, I'm sorry, I should make
Well,
that
no,
clear,
that's
but that's
okay.
just
But I
one
think that
thing.
this is good for our listeners. Like, now you know, like, what to look for in your own state, and
Yes.
you can check that out. Okay.
Yeah, because you can call your local DMV, whatever state that you may be in, and see if they have the communication law or a way to register your vehicle.
Okay.
Through other states and see what they have.
And if you need to excuse yourself for a second to do the next prompt,
He's okay.
go for it. We all understand.
He seems to be doing okay.
Okay, all right. Good job, Elijah.
So, all right. Another tip is to do an emergency or natural disaster plan.
Okay.
And again, I will get you these websites that you can actually see templates. So what you do is that you would create a natural disaster plan for in case of a fire or a flood or even a pandemic now, with the key players in mind. So mom, dad, if they're an adult and they have a caregiver, what plans do you put in place if something like this happens for your child? You can also work with your IEP team to create a safety plan through your IEP, or if you have a ISP for the adults, you could create a safety plan as well. So you can get together with those teams and come up with a what if plan. What if a fire happens? What do you want your child or adult to do? What if the house floods? What if the house is not safe? Where do I want my child to go here? So we call them the what if plans. Okay. Another one is, I have them written down. I mentioned about going to your local police department and talking to them, but there's a form on, and I'm going to give you the website, the National Autism Association website.
Okay.
There is a form that you can actually fill out that you put your child's picture, their name, and fill out the information or adult about them, their disability, what they like, what they don't like. And that form, like I said, you can take it to your local police department, ask them, do they have anything in place? Talk to them about this form, what this means, what you need them to do. Like, they should have social workers that work at different police stations. So maybe seeing if you could speak with a social worker that they may have and devise a plan there.
And then thereby your first interaction with police isn't a negative one. Like, if, you know.
Yes. And for both
right.
the
for
child
both
or
parties,
adult and the law enforcement officer. And then we're educating them as well by giving them this form, showing them. The more parents that go to their local law enforcement, some law enforcement officers are asking for things like this so that they know what they should and should not do, or can and can't do, or just knowing more about who's in their community.
Right.
Another one we have is the Autism Identification Card or ID or bracelet.
Okay.
So there are different websites that actually have ID bracelets that say I have autism. Or you can get shoe tags that have a little key card and it says I have autism. Or like I said, if they drive, you can have the autism communication card along with their state ID or with their driver's license. And if they come in contact with an officer, they would hand them both cards so then they can tell them or inform them that they have autism or a communication disability or whatever their special need may be. And then the other one was the big red safety box that I mentioned from the National Autism Society. And that is something for your home. So that's the window alarms, that's the stop sign. There are stickers in there you put on your windows that says someone with autism lives here. They're in English and in Spanish. Okay. There's also pamphlets in there that show you how to order the bracelets and where to order bracelets from. It's just a neat little box that you can put together. So those are about 5 tips that we'll be giving out. Emotional. Yes, yes, I agree. Emergency room personnel do need to be educated. On top of that, with Elijah having a lot of health concerns,
Right,
we've
you're
spent a
probably in the
lot of
hospital.
time in the hospital. And so I find myself educating them all the time. Milestones also trains residents.
Oh, okay.
Now, we just started training residents over the last few years on autism and providing them with resources. What we're learning is that emergency rooms, doctors, they just don't have the tools. Like, they learned in college how to save people, but autism and disability was not included in those teachings. And so now we have different organizations that want to give them this information because the numbers are growing in the autism and special needs community, and therefore they do need to be taught. So yes, emergency room, definitely. But that's where it's important for parents like ourselves who are advocates for our children. It's important to teach them about your child, and what works and what doesn't work. It's very important for you to do that. And don't feel like I don't have a degree or I'm not a medical resident to do that.
You're the
But
expert.
you're the expert on your child or the one
Right.
that you're caring for.
Right.
And they look for that information too. I didn't know that. As I'm going through it with Elijah, they're looking for someone to tell them what to do.
Well, how wonderful to be able to receive that information before it's a situation where maybe it's, you know, spiraling out of control and it's not the time to like learn about somebody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to just make sure we get cover everything that's in the chat. So Yvonne has shared that policemen and women need to be educated on autism in conjunction with other mental illnesses and know that each individual person is different with their behaviors, which is so true. And that many adults are very childlike and need to be calmed down with music, with Disney, Sesame characters, to get the individual to trust them. So like that would be a wonderful thing. You know, if that describes your child, to be able to share that with, you know, with people that he might come in contact with. Yes, and then she also shares that that parents know our children more than anyone. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Back to that point where she made about the police and just one thing we had taught Warrensville Police Department and Garfield Police Department earlier in the year. And we explained to them that you may see an adult on the spectrum and he has a glittery book bag, or he may be carrying a My Little Pony, or he may be carrying a Disney character, because we try to give them scenarios of different types of individuals with autism that they may come in contact with. Some people may think that, oh my God, this is an adult, a pedophile, but we try to explain to them that once you kind of talk to them, you'll see that they may have some sort of intellectual disability, and to allow them, if it's not harming anyone, to keep that My Little Pony or that Disney character or that in their hands, because it's helping them to stay calm. We also teach them, because law enforcement are used to just giving commands, one after one after one after one. You have to give one at a time. And you have to give what's called a pregnant pause, meaning so much time in between questions that you're feeling uncomfortable, to give the other person the time to give Elijah the opportunity to process. So definitely, there's a lot of things, like I said, as parents that we can do to educate our law enforcement, as well as doctors and emergency room and all of that as well.
I have a question for you, Selena.
Sure.
If I can just jump in here real quick. So do you have, or have you encountered any difficulties in like creating this kind of awareness for adults versus children? Because obviously, you know, HIPAA law comes into play once you get to be 18 years old. And I'm just wondering how your organization has dealt with any of those kinds of issues, or you know, either Milestones or Mother to Mother.
So I will say directly, we have not encountered it. However, this is something that has been talked about. We talked about it with the county board, because you're right, as a parent, I can do all these things for Elijah, do the safety training, giving the information to the police. But when he turns 18, unless I get guardianship of him, he's now an adult. And so now he has to be the one to implement these things and advocate for himself. Because of how impacted Elijah is, I will continue to be his guardian. But with other parents, you can, if guardianship is something that you're thinking about so that you can still be active in making decisions for your child, or as they are growing up or are adults, just teaching them how to advocate for themselves, just teaching them and giving them the information that they need. But you also have those, like you, if this is what you were saying, Catherine, that may be adults that refuse to do any of this. And that's a possibility. They may not want to do the safety trainings. They may not want to do any of that. And that's a hard thing, because they're adults.
Well, I guess in this scenario, though, I mean, at least, if a parent wanted to go talk to their local law enforcement without their adult child, I mean, at least, hopefully they would be receptive to learning, okay, there's somebody with special needs in this community. If we are entering this community, we just need to be aware and cautious.
Yes.
And perhaps, and definitely follow those same kind of protocols that they do when they, when it's somebody who is willing to work with them and, has been, wears the wristband or, has the alert on their residence and that sort of thing.
I think you're right. I mean, even if Elijah, when he becomes his own, if I'm not his guardian, I would still probably, like you say, go to the police department and say, hey, my son's an adult, but I just want to let you know that he's in the community. Here's his picture. This is what I want you to know about him. And if you happen to interact with him, I think, we have to think outside the box.
Right.
We know that certain laws prohibit us to actually work on their behalf unless we have the proper guardianship. But doing that, Catherine, is a great way to still help to keep them safe, and making them wear their wristband, or making sure they have that ID card in their wallet or in their pocket along with their ID.
If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Let's see, we're getting a comment now. Having a safety net of neighbors, friends, family, so that more people involved in the individual's life are aware. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how parents can foster that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we've lived in our neighborhood for probably over 5 years. And so we know the neighbors on each side, and the neighbor across the street actually has a son with autism. So they're all familiar with Elijah, and they know that he has autism. If you are my husband is more of the come on over for a beer type person. I'm not. So if you are comfortable with building a relationship with your neighbors, if you see certain things, maybe even giving them a copy of your emergency plan in case they see him, or in case something happens. Like, some of our individuals are able to be home alone, but if they see something, they have information on them, giving them a sheet that you would give to the police officer if they come in contact with them. Also, for some parents like myself, I'm working to get Elijah like a home health aide type person for him, another caregiver, because of course I'm not going to be around forever, and he will have to get used to being with someone else, and starting to train him now, being in the care of someone else in the home, making sure that they have the information. Same thing with your family members, giving them that sheet, or even a notebook. Write in a notebook everything you want your family to know about your child in case anything happens.
Yeah, that's really good information.
And one of the members of the writing team for Key Ministry has a very organized notebook that they leave with their loved ones who are caring for their adult son when they travel, and they don't go away often, but
Right.
you know, over time, they've just created this thing that is, I mean, it's giant, but it anticipates basically everything that he would encounter away from his parents, you know, for someone, whether it's an aide who's coming in the home or it's a family member taking care. So yeah, that's an excellent idea as well.
So, yes, and it's in the chat. It's anybody who receives that notebook can kind of be on the same page and really know all the information that is necessary. So that's great. Could you tell us a little bit more about Mother to Mother, about the organization that you founded, a little bit more about its history and kind of what your goals are right now for your organization?
Okay. I founded Mother to Mother in 2017 through the Word Church. And the way that it actually happened is one of the elders approached me, and I was giving her some updates on some milestones that Elijah had did, and I was so excited. And she said to me, you know, it's time. And I said, time for what? She said, it's time for you to create this support group, to create this ministry for the rest of these families. She kind of had been prepping me for a few years. And I think I was more so scared to do it, or not having the confidence to think that I can do it. And so she had kind of been prepping me, and that's why she said it's time. So we sat down and we came up with a name. And from there, we started having support groups, like I said, every 2 weeks. And then we also would do like resource fairs. So we would have it on one of our fields at the church where families can come and get resources and information and learn about the support group. From there, we kind of stretched to having meetings at the library. So we were on the west side of Cleveland and the east side of Cleveland, and we would have support group meetings. We would do IEP trainings. We would have people from the county board come in and talk to us about sexual education, predators, just all type of different topics. I would have people come in to talk to the families, give them education. We do a lot of family events together. So I would create or come up with field trips, and the church would allow us to use the vans, and we would go. We had gotten tickets to Indians games. We've been to Florida together. Like,
wow.
We travel. What we love so much about it is that our children met and they communicate their own way, but they get those social skills together, and they really look at each other as friends. And it's quite a few of them. I think I want to say maybe 10 of them that are consistent and that we would do things with. Let's see, from there, right now in COVID, we're doing virtual meetings. And of course, we have our Facebook pages where we're trying to give resources with the upcoming school year. Yesterday, we just launched our Spanish speaking support group. So we're trying to reach the Spanish community, the Spanish speaking community. We actually heard from some of their parents that they want to come to support groups, but a big barrier is the language. So we have someone that speaks Spanish that's able to translate. And so we just started that yesterday, and that'll be every first Tuesday of the month.
Wow.
So we are very busy, and right now I'm working with the church again. We're about to do parenting classes starting at the end of September through the Word Church, and they're called Parenting in the New Normal. It'll be a 6-week course, and we're going to be training out of, I'm sure I got the book around here somewhere. Active Parenting Now is the name of the book, if you ever heard of it. Right. But just talking about what parenting looks like for all walks of life in this new norm. Right. It'll be virtual.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be a virtual. We're doing everything virtually. Because that's the new norm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
and I'll make sure
so virtual, and so people can go to the Mother to Mother, so it's Mother #2 Mother Facebook page for more information about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they can. And to register for any of the support group meetings, you can go to Mother2Mother.info to register and just to get more information about the organization.
Okay. great. And so for those of you who are not from Northeast Ohio, since a lot of things are virtual right now, I really encourage you to check that out. So Patricia shared in the chat, and I thought this was an excellent comment, adults who use communication devices to make sure those are formatted with information to share about individuals with first responders. So that the language is in there so they can easily access that.
Yes. Patricia's son, Matthew, wears a communication device around his neck, which is really cool. And so he can, I want to say, press buttons. It'll say what his name is for those who are nonverbal. It can say his name, and I think it has like his address and information in it that the police officers can hear. And when we did our training, Patricia brought Matthew and actually showed the communication device to the officers. Just letting them know that there are other forms of communication for those who may be nonverbal or with little or a little verbal.
That's great. Yeah, and just like educating as many people as possible about just the variety of you know, how people communicate. And you know, you talked about stimming. Like if you're not familiar with that, you might really be alarmed when in fact, you know, there's nothing to be scared of.
And that's something, right. And that's something that we try to train police officers. We give them that verbiage. Like if you see a child that's flapping their hands or pacing back and forth, or they let out outbursts like a tick, that's a form of stimming. And we give them the definition of stimming and what in videos, what that may look like. Because of course, if you see one person with autism, that's just one person with autism.
Right.
They are not the same.
Right.
They are all different. Right now I'm working with a parent that I met through Milestones, and Tri-C has asked us to come along and train police officers in an advanced officers training. And we're going to start those in October. So I believe this is going to be ongoing for officers who are already out in the field.
Great.
And we're going to train them kind of like on Autism 101, what to look for. Sensory, we talk about a lot of sensory, the flashing lights, the loud siren, what they may see in an individual if they have sensory issues. So, yeah.
For our non-Northeast Ohio viewers, I just want to say that Tri-C that Selena referenced is Cuyahoga County Community College, Cuyahoga Community College, which is the very large community college in the Cleveland area. So that's wonderful that you're getting that training into, you know, the folks that are going on to become police officers. Let's see. Yes, Cuyahoga Community College. Thank you. What about an introduction of this is from the chat. What about an introduction of the police department of giving an award or certificate or small trinket to an individual so that the individual can feel comfortable and have past history of a memory that was positive? So that's like
a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I think we really want to build up the confidence in parents and bring some of the fear down. The police, unfortunately, have been getting a lot of bad publicity, and it's putting a lot of fear out there. So things like that, like a trinket or certificate, or just, you know, them getting the training and just changing some of the behavior and getting more awareness and understanding will help to minimize some of the anxiety in families, some of the fear, and even our individuals. So yeah, I think that that's a good idea as well. Giving them something to say, hey, or I appreciate you listening. Like we teach them to give them positive feedback. So let's say if you pull someone over or you have to come in contact, thank you for listening. Thank you for following the direction. You know what I mean? Just giving them that positive feedback. But again, this all comes with training and education. And first we have to bring awareness.
Right.
A lot of officers don't know.
Right.
And so we got to start there.
I was thinking, like at my kids' school, there's a school resource officer. So it's the same police officer who's in the school, you know, all day, every day. And to see him interact with the students, it's phenomenal to watch, because there's this comfort level now between the students. And granted, it's, you know, one police officer, but I feel like the students now have had like a very positive interaction with the police. And so that I don't know, I think that's been in my mind a positive thing, just that exposure.
Exactly. Even at Elijah School, they have a few resource officers there. And again, people fear what they don't know. Exactly. And once you get to know the students and you get to spend that time with them, it also lets the guard down of the officers. And so now when Elijah comes in, they know what to expect. He comes in, unfortunately they have metal detectors for safety, but Elijah comes in, they know he doesn't even have to give him his book bag, because they know him so well that all they know in his book bag is DVDs, because he brings his DVDs.
Hi, Elijah.
CVEC must be over. You done? You done with Zoom? Good job. He did well by himself. I hope.
That was pretty
sounded
good.
Like it.
Well, I don't know about him, but I've about reached my Zoom limit, so I applaud him for sticking with it.
So yeah, I love how the officers at the school now know him and know the students in his classroom. They know how to handle them. They know, and they're so good with them. But again, it comes back to pulling down the fear, bringing down the wall, and really just getting to know and educate yourself about individuals with special needs.
Yeah, and I want to include, as we're talking about disabilities, hidden disabilities, mental illness as well, and the comment is that mental illness behaviors can be very nerve-wracking as well. And and if the more education, the more awareness there is out there, it can break down the stigma.
That's exactly right. On top of Elijah, my mom, who passed away this March, suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. And she was diagnosed when I was 12 years old. And yeah, mental illness is draining. It's so draining. But again, like you say, the more education, the more awareness we bring about these different mental illnesses and disabilities and special needs, like you say, it'll help to kill down the stigma, and also start allowing people to understand that they're people too. They're just people with special needs. I think we put them in this category where they're not people. And yes, knowledge is power, and we treat them as though they're not normal, but they're just different. We all have a special need. Just really sit back and think about it. What is that thing that you know you have that you do that someone would say you have a special need? Mine is my anxiety, is my special need. I'm like Elijah. If my routine is disrupted, I have a meltdown. It may not be the type of meltdown that he has, but I get anxious, I get flustered, I get upset. So, I mean,
I think that's very relatable. I think a lot of us could,
Absolutely.
Well, I have another question.
Sure.
So is your information, is like on the Autism Speaks website or anything like that? Because I mean, all these are such great information, and I would think that, like, I know they have a robust set of resource pages that are organized by state, and maybe even, at a lower level, than that. But I mean, there's so much good information that you shared today. I would hope that, they would be sharing that as well, and the other national autism support organizations, not just Autism Speaks. So
I don't, to my knowledge, I've been on their site. We'll make sure that we get our information to them. I know Milestones has it on their website. Connecting for Kids shares a lot of our information, and we're just sharing our information via social media, email blast, and other people that just share our information.
Okay. Well, we had, I don't know if you had a chance to see, but we had a conversation with Janet Williams, who is just a great lady, and she is the head. She has basically your same job at Autism Speaks.
Okay.
And I met her at a conference in December that was talking about, the needs of children on the spectrum in Spanish-speaking communities and the Black community, and really, anywhere that that, you know, tend to be underserved medically, or, you know, just may not have as much information as they really need about what autism is and how to support families that have autism. So, yeah, I think, you know,
the disparities are real.
Yes.
And so my job at Milestones is to ensure that Milestones information is getting to these areas, to these communities where there aren't any resources, to make sure that they have access to our free help desk and consultations, and just making sure that they get the education and resources and things that they need. That's part of my job, is to ensure that, because I mean, you're right. Some of the disparities in diagnosis is lack of resources, lack of, for our Spanish speaking community, the barrier of not speaking English. There's the cultural barriers. There are, you know, disparities in healthcare and getting wrong diagnosis because of the testing that's used is not geared towards minorities. And so it's a lot of things that definitely, you know, they're working on it, to my knowledge of what I'm hearing, but it takes all of us as organizations to come together and just make sure that we're servicing everyone, that everyone has access to our information.
Right. And is it Milestones, milestones.org? Is it a .org? Milestones.org.
Yes,
and
.org.
so that, again, this is Milestones is a Cleveland-based organization, but it definitely has a national reach, for sure. And Catherine just put,
we have a lot of families that call in. Yes, with our free help desk, you can call in from any state and we will do the legwork to look for the resources within your state. To, you know, or we've had people call from other countries. We do our best to try to ensure that we can link you to those resources that are in your area. So yes, even if you're not in Northeast Ohio, you can still call Milestones and we will definitely either connect you with the organization that's similar to Milestones in your area that can help you get the resources, or we'll try to get the resources to you.
Well, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can tell you in the chat, you're getting shout outs, not just from Ohio, but from people. We've got California, New Jersey, giving you shout outs. So,
thank you.
So I just want to thank you for being here today. This was fantastic. It was just my pleasure to see you again. And
I know.
And I really appreciate the information you shared. The participation from our viewers today has been great.
Yes.
And just thank you. And we will definitely, I think you'll have lots of people seeking you out, because you just provided some really wonderful ideas and information and things that I think we all need to go research a little bit more for our own communities. So
I know someone typed in the chat, and this is really true, that it does take a village, especially during this time. Parents, it's important that we work together, share what works for your family, what works for another person's family. We learn best from each other. And although our situations may be a little different, it's still good to be able to kind of, if, for instance, Patricia's son is 30, my son is 16, she's been able to teach me a lot about what to expect in those adult years, as I'm able to teach somebody about the younger. So it's so good that if we can work together as family and as parents, just to help each other out.
Absolutely. You're not alone. And that's where this is streaming right now on the Not Alone Facebook page. So
not alone.
Wonderful. Well, Selena, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time today. Thank you to Elijah too. And everybody, we invite you to visit keyministry.org and look at our events page to see more of what's coming up. Plus we have some other resources on there we want you to check out. So thanks again, everybody. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.